Good afternoon and welcome to the first day of April. I'm Kate Law, the Membership and Learning Director here at the CCMA, and today I'm delighted to be joined by James Revell, the Director of International Contact Centres at Air France-KLM. James has progressed his career from the front line and through the ranks to where he is today. So we felt that inviting James to join us at Career Talk was just perfect to share his story with the industry. Welcome, James.
Hi there, nice to be here. I noticed actually that it's April Fool's Day. I'm not sure if it's a coincidence or what.
We thought we'd like to keep it interesting. We thought we're still going to keep
Okay.
it running and keep the momentum by having it on April Fool's Day. That's not going to stop us.
All right, okay.
So thank you so much for joining us today, James. And like we said before, is that your career and how you've progressed with that, I think is one to really share with the industry, because it's so relevant to a lot of individuals that will start their career within the contact centre and progress through. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, if I may, and find out a little more about you and your experience. So your role as Director of International Contact Centres sounds really interesting. What does that actually mean on a day-to-day basis?
So on a day-to-day basis, well, we've got quite a complex structure of contact centres within France-KLM to cover the global business. And we have some in-house centres, some second-party and third-party partners that we work with to ensure that we cover the whole span of our activities globally. So my particular remit is looking after the legacy internal Air France-KLM contact centres, of which there are 5. So we have a small one in Montreal. The largest one is in Wembley in the UK. We have one in Guangzhou, in Cairo and Johannesburg. So I look after our colleagues over there.
Wow. Does that entail a lot of travel then as part of your role?
Well, it should do theoretically. However, things have been well, not up in the air. They're the reverse of up in the air for the past couple of years. So most of it has been done remotely. But now we can start up again. I'm raring to go and see the various centres. The one in London's a little bit easier.
A little bit easier to get to.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I can imagine. So let's get back to the beginning. So have you always worked in the contact centre environment?
Yeah, more or less. So I think straight out of college, I went to work in France for a few years, teaching English at a university, which I kind of thought I wanted to be a teacher. And then I realised when I was doing it that I didn't want to be a teacher. But I really wanted to use language skills, because that's what I had my training in. So I applied to various French-speaking companies based in the UK. I got a job working for Air France, which wasn't really the contact centre. It was obviously, we didn't have a centralised contact centre at the time, so it was a very small contact centre unit in the loosest sense of the term, but working for the frequent flyer programme on the phone as an advisor, which was really my first foray into the contact centre world. That lasted for 9 months. I was kind of keen to get out of there and move into commercial, like sales, because I thought, that's where it's at. It's brilliant. I went into sales. I did stay there for a few years in various different roles, indoor and outdoor sales, but I don't think it was really for me. And there was an opportunity to go back in contact centres, and I did in the London centre in Wembley as an operations manager. And that's kind of really where it properly started. Again, for me from a contact centre perspective, and realised that was really my, not wanting to sound too naff, but my spiritual home as far as my professional career was concerned. And it was a really dynamic environment, and I see that in by dealings with the Contact Centre Managers Association, doing the awards and things like that. Seeing that it's a dynamic working place. It's very vibrant. It's very collaborative, and it's people centric. And I really love that. So it's from there I did several roles: operations manager, head of operations, general manager, so looking after completely the centre in London, and then finally as in this role as director of international contact centre. So it's been nice, because there really has been a clear progression for me as soon as I realised that really was what I was passionate about, what I loved doing, and it's really nice. It fell into place quite nicely.
Oh, that's great to hear, because I think that sometimes you think it's either like Marmite, isn't it, working within the contact centre, either love it or hate it. And I think you're right. It's not enough, but I think it's spiritual.
No, you're right.
If you enjoy that environment, and if you can progress a career within that environment as well, it's lovely to hear that, and to do that through one brand, and probably seeing so many changes within that brand over the years will be quite a lot that you've seen and experienced through that time to give you the skills to where you've got today.
Yes, that's right. And it has been pleasing to see the evolution, and obviously with technologies, with different footprints of activities being done elsewhere, things coming along like social media, for example, and that being a game changer in terms of the contact, omni-channel, and all the various things that obviously we all know about. But one thing really kind of underpins it, is the foundation to that and remains constant, and that's that ability to a very vibrant, people-centric environment, but also the rather privileged role that we had to being engaged directly with the customer as well. And I think that's gained, I mean, the thing that I've really seen change from a contact centre perspective is the fact that has gained more importance, that ability to really engage with the customers, being at the sharp end, for that to be a perception within the wider business, where that really you can make a difference, gather information, and then feed that back into the business for really positive improvements to be made for the customer journey. So that for me has been the biggest change, because when I first went back as an operations manager, people go, "Why are you going to the contact centre?" Everyone was talking about, the website for sales, that's going to be it. And which I think was a pretty two-dimensional way of looking at it. But then we thought that just opened up a lot of opportunities there. I mean, the website doesn't always, it's extremely good, but for 5% of cases there may be an issue, in which case you need to have that support there, and there are so many things that can be done outside of that. So there are other opportunities that's opened. So it's been really nice to see. But as I say, that thing underpinning it, which was really that people-centric experience, which I find so rewarding.
I love that. So what would you say has been your greatest achievement then within your career?
I think I would go back to when I started as the general manager within the centre in Wembley. It was a period where we were undergoing a lot of change, not always positive, and it was effectively not suddenly having a line manager who was with me all the time to be responsible for a business unit, a large business unit, the buck stopping there, having a line manager who was very supportive, but obviously it was in Paris, so it was not really one of those things where you can bump into them on a day-to-day basis and feed off. And so it was a more isolated role, but it also gave a lot of freedom, and it was quite empowering as well to set out a strategy. We're really starting from zero to build up credibility. There was a couple of projects there which weren't particularly popular, trying to gain credibility, give people confidence that it was the right strategy, going in the right direction, and trying to build up the people and the customer metrics along the overall strategy, and saw that year on year there were incremental improvements in all the metrics, where we reached that point pre-COVID, which shows that's such a great curve. And doing that as a team that we built together, that was really rewarding. I think that I would put those 5 years in charge of the Wembley Centre as really one of the most rewarding parts of my career.
Amazing. And I like what you say about you've built that team and taking that team. So even though you've progressed your career within that industry as well, it sounds like you are progressing your team around you and helping others to progress their career along that journey as well.
Yeah, I think that's really vital to do that. It is a team effort, 100%, and it's great to see now that I've moved on. I'm slightly more remote from that individuals within that team have really progressed within that organisation and are they've managed to do similar progressions within their career as well, and you can see that it's quite rewarding for them, and that there is and I think this is one of the great things. It's almost like creating an extended family in a way. So you spend so much time at work, it has to be something that is enjoyable for you to want to give more, and it becomes quite a virtuous circle. So to create quite a tight-knit team, dependent on one another, trusting one another, and having a good time while you do it, it creates a kind of extended family feel. Even with bigger teams, it's obviously more difficult to create, and particularly if you've got virtual teams as well, remote teams. But I think that's extremely important to try to get that ethos and that philosophy underpinning the working environment and the culture within a centre.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think creating that culture, you spend so much time at work, so creating that unit together and creating that team together, because ultimately you go through a lot together, from a work perspective, but also from a personal perspective, because there's a lot that goes on, and how many hours you work a week, naturally you'll create friendships and trust along with your colleagues as that progresses through.
That's right indeed. And what's something that I've really liked with the approach that Air France KLM have tried to instill globally is that there's a global company culture, and it's two large companies as well, so there's individual cultures within that, but there's a respect for those different company cultures and how they fit in, and even from a centre perspective as well, look at all the different centres. Yes, we have to give a consistency of service which are in line with the Air France and KLM cultures and values, and we do have a common language that we utilise there, but there's freedom there to put a little bit of a local spin on that as well. So each centre can really occupy its own individual space in terms of identity, and it must. I mean, this centre in Guangzhou in China is completely different from the centre in Montreal, or the ones we've got in Mauritius and elsewhere, and you can feel that it's tangible, and there's an opportunity for those cultures to come out from an individual centre perspective.
I love that. So it sounds like you're on a journey and you're inspiring others along their journey, but who's inspired you on your journey?
Well, I won't be too trite about it, but it's been the people that I have worked with along the way. Regards, I've been really lucky with the line managers that I've had. They've always allowed me to be myself, make mistakes, tell me when I've made mistakes, absolutely, but giving me the freedom to learn from them, and have really been passionate about what they want to do. A clear vision, a clear strategy, have their own obviously unique ways of doing these things, but they've been quite inspiring and very supportive along the way. And all the other people, I think, from a cross-functional perspective, and also the teams that I've worked with as well, that they'd be great. You talk about a leader or a manager inspiring their teams, but it works the other way around as well. And you can see people in the last 2 or 3 years have been really critical with that, because you've had very difficult times for the teams, and even as a line manager, you need to be inspired by the fact that even in the most difficult times, people are giving it the raw for their customers and their colleagues, trying to be supportive, and that gives more energy from a people manager perspective as well, to say that there is something really good going on there as well, and so that's quite inspiring. So it's a very broad and general answer, and I wouldn't like to put it down to one individual, but it's been a collective and I think team effort since I've been there, and I think regardless of the people that have been there, that's been quite consistent, and I think that's because it's embedded in the culture.
I love that. And I think it's nice to hear a difference, because when you normally ask who's inspired you, it tends to be a previous boss or someone you've worked alongside, maybe a peer. But it's nice to hear that you see that from really a more diverse, broad view of that, is that it's people within your own team that have inspired you, and how they are within that culture, but also cross-sectional. That's really nice to hear. It's a different opinion. So thank you. And what's your favourite work memory?
Well, there's a couple that immediately spring to mind. I would say, I think back in the good days when we could travel, and I think entertainment budgets were a little bit more extravagant than they are now. We were all taken to Cairo. I think this was at the turn of the century. I can't believe I'm saying that. It was and it was great. It was really a lot younger. slightly fewer responsibilities, and I think everyone just had a great time. I'll leave it at there. You can fill in the gaps. But and another, I'm not just saying this just because it's an interview with the CCMA, but when the Wembley Centre won the best remote working program a few years ago, that really was the product of a lot of years of hard work, building relationships with key stakeholders, including the trade union that we work very closely with. And the whole team got up on stage, including the trade union as well. And I think it was at that moment you think, oh, that's nice. Wow. You know, everyone's up here. You know, it wasn't, you know, it was, quite difficult going through that and trying to build that, getting things up and running. But it was a real team effort, and you could see everybody really enjoyed doing that as a team. And to step back and look at that and think, that was quite a good moment in time.
That's brilliant. And we're always moving on to the next thing, aren't we? So I find that a lot of feedback that we get from the awards, and being at the awards from a member perspective, myself in a previous life, is taking that time to reflect and celebrate that success is absolutely fantastic, and just recognize some of the great things that the teams have been doing, the business has been doing to get to where they are, and achieving that award is huge. So that's great that, like I say, all of the team got on the stage. I love that. That's great.
And I think from a wider perspective as well, and that there's many things that I can see are different. I mean, the awards is great. The CCMA is there as well to promote the role of the contact centre. You've got, for example, Martin Teasdale with his Get Out of Rap podcast that he's doing as well. It's raising and promoting the idea of a contact centre. I myself fell into the trap going into this in a contact centre. Oh, it's sweatshops, they're horrible places to work. Nothing could be further than the truth, and trying to alter that perception within your own company. As I say, that's changed a lot because there's to realise the importance of the contact centre from a commercial perspective, amongst other things, but also outside as well to try to change. I'm proud to turn around to people and say, I work in a contact centre. I don't say I'm the director of international contact centres, but I work in a contact centre environment, and I think that's quite important, and it's really good to see that there are a lot of people promoting that. Likewise, as positive places to work where you can grow a career. There are many opportunities to take various different skill sets and really go into different directions. Try that out. Oh, that didn't work out. I tried something else, and that's really good. You can actually do that within contact centres.
Absolutely. And I think the old stigma is that you go, like say, the sweatshop stigma that was attached to that first role within the contact centre. And then the old typical career pathway was always agent to team manager to operations manager. And that's the only route. But I think that over the last so many years is that organisations are now starting to think about, actually, well, just because you started within the contact centre, you might want to go into marketing or finance or product. There's so many different areas and so many skills that you can gain from starting off. And I suppose that although it may have been a while that you were on the phones, but you remember what it's like being on that front line. So it helps you to connect with your people to say, I know what it's like. And I know what it's like being on the forefront, talking to those customers when something's gone wrong, and it's not necessarily always the easiest of conversations, but you can actually you can empathise with some of what it's like.
Absolutely, it is such a tough job. Such a tough job, and it's the perception is as an entry level job, which is a little bit disparaging because it's a lot more than that. It's an entry level job, but it's a real skill set to have that resilience throughout the day to deal with the 80% of the great calls that you're going to have, talking to people, establishing a relationship with them, listening to them, building that trust, trying to promote the brand, being the ambassador for that. But then you've got the difficult conversations, the difficult messages. COVID, I think, was a really tough time. I mean, for an extended period where you've got lots of changes in governmental restrictions, so coming in and out of the country, and then trying to get the knowledge management database to up to date quick enough to be able to feed our people in the front line, that not always being there, and to try and have those emotional conversations with customers, not necessarily having the right information at the right moment. That's really tough. And also with the fact that, okay, company's not doing too well because of COVID hanging over the head, to be able to mix that up and get on with it and deliver a great customer service and to be there and to engage at a time when customers need most. That's a really tough call. So I think it's really, a slap to say to people, oh, well, it's an advisor role. No, it is probably the toughest a role that there is. The resilience is needed, is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on it there, is that your industry has seen such an impact to that, and how it's impacted your frontline colleagues even more so because of the change in regulations, travel, what that means, and how it's impacted the industry, and like you say, what people can and can't do. So absolutely a really tough time, but it's definitely not an entry-level role. There's so many opportunities there.
No, it's not. Goodness me.
Absolutely. So what would you say is the best advice that you've ever received?
I think really it's just to be yourself, not wanting to be too happy days about it, but it's to be yourself. And I'd say that particularly if you want to go down that line manager, people manager pathway, people are going to pick up on a phony. And I don't mean phony in a really sinister way, but someone that's maybe trying to project themselves into their ideal of what a line manager should be. You have to be, and I think it's quite relevant just in terms of relevant discussion points in terms of diversity and inclusion. Questions that we ask is it possible for you to be your authentic self within your organization? I think for line management in particular, you really do need to be your authentic self, because people are going to pick up on that, and it will help build credible relationships. If people see, you've not always got the answer, you've not got monopoly on wisdom, you are vulnerable yourselves as well. So to be honest and open about that, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign, as long as you're listening as well, to try to get that advice, and you're not just saying, oh, I've not got the answers, that it's actually extremely important to realize that it's okay to do that, and it does help a lot. It does enable you, I think, to create a bond. I'm not saying it's exclusive just for people management roles as well. Obviously, you've got to interact with people within the contact center anyway, whether it be customer or colleagues, like any other workplace, and being authentic is as important there as ever. But I would say it probably just even more important if you're going into that people management role.
No, I love that. And what do you think is the key to a successful career?
I think you've got to be happy with what you're doing. You really got to, and I think I didn't have an idea about really what I wanted to do. And I always joke with school colleagues that I'm still in touch with now, because we did this thing when we were 16 many years ago, where you put everything into a computer at a time and you get out, this is what you're going to be. And we've still not got the results of that about 40 years later. It's a very slow computer program, I should imagine. So I kind of fumbled my way in a way towards realizing in my 30s, this is really what I wanted to do. I think you have to be happy in what you're doing. I think always the litmus test for me is the Sunday night test. I say that as if the working week is Monday to Friday, but there's the Sunday night test in the old-fashioned sense, where you've got work the next day. Are you dreading it, or is it really, oh, I've got work tomorrow, that's great. Obviously not the same as leisure time, but there's no sense of dread there. It's something you're looking forward to. As we said before, you spend so much time working, and I think if it's something that you're not 100%, oh, actually I'm not really looking forward to it, really be brave and just do some soul searching and see what it is exactly that you like doing, and try to find it. And I think regardless, there is a place in the contact center, but don't try to crowbar yourself into a line management position if that's not what ultimately makes you happy, but you feel that that's the way that you should be going, because for whatever reason. But look at what it is that ultimately makes you happy, because that really should be the driver.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Absolutely. And so you've been through like I say, you've not been traveling as much within your current role, and so you've had to work remotely for some time. So what would you say is your best remote work tip?
Now, I feel a bit of a fraud when it comes to this because I really pushed through remote working for colleagues, and we won the award and everything, and that was really nice. But I was the last person to leave the centre before COVID, and you had to get me, drag me, kicking and screaming from the centre to work from home. And now I'm here and I absolutely love it. I think on an ergonomic perspective, get a good chair. I was on something particularly, I didn't think we were going to be there for that long, so I was sitting on really bad furniture for ages. Don't break the dining room table 2 days before Christmas because you're not going to be a popular person. That's another tip. But I would say, in all seriousness now, my best remote working tip is go back to the office. Now, I don't mean that on a permanent perspective, but make sure you've got a good balance between the office and home. I can say that from personal experience as well, because I think when doing it 100% previously, during difficult times, it's tough on mental well-being. But also the contact centre is, as you say, a dynamic place. You get it on colleague surveys. What you really love. I love the atmosphere. I love speaking to the colleagues, and you can do that remotely, but it's not the same as in real life. So that ability to engage with people face to face, to really soak up rather the contact center environment. You need to reconnect, quite frequently. Saying that from a company perspective, we just can't expect people to go back. We have to give people a reason to go back into the office. Why do you want people to go back into the office? Yes, it's to soak up the atmosphere. So do things that are special. Get people to come in, for a reason, that there are things there to do. And I know that Alf now, who's in charge of the Wembley Centre, looking with colleagues now at the best way to go, to try to get back into the office. Bear in mind that there's been 100% for quite some time, and even before COVID, 70% home working. So it's a significant challenge, but still, I think it's important to really connect with your colleagues and that contact centre environment to keep it authentic and genuine.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think a lot of people have missed that water cooler conversation, that go for a brew and have a catch up, and that interaction. You can see how somebody is feeling sometimes because their voice and their appearance may be slightly different. So it is important to connect with people face to face. I agree. So thank you for sharing your career journey, but I now have some rapid fire questions for you, if I may.
Yeah.
So, what's your favourite breakfast?
Don't judge me, but it's I need to get out more. Dark chocolate digestive biscuits. I'm sorry. For breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Seriously, if you could see my office, I'd see. She's got a professional frame here. If I reach to my left, there's a tin of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know.
We're not here to judge, James. We're not here to judge.
I know.
Would you rather fly or have a super strength?
Fly.
Fly. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I have to say that in aviation, I think.
I was going to say it kind of goes quite well with your job.
Exactly.
So you wouldn't want to fly.
Yeah.
Would you rather travel to the past or to the future?
The past. As you can tell, I'm getting old because it was a better place. That's the middle-aged man in me. No, but I think I would go back to the past, but I'm very conscious of it would have to be so I couldn't tamper with anything because I'm very conscious of what happened in Back to the Future. And I don't want any of that happening. I really don't. So I couldn't interact in any way, but I could just observe.
Just observe, okay. And what is your hidden talent?
Oh, it's well hidden. So I love to write. So I do a lot of writing, and I did that particularly during COVID. That was great. That was really good. I enjoyed that. And for a short while, when I had a lot more time on my hands, I did a stand-up comedy course. And can I just say, it was the best training that I have ever had, and for my career as well. If anyone's thinking, oh, what should I do to improve my career? Doing a stand-up comedy course, it was great. There's like a section on heckling where basically you stand in front of people and a lot of people are shouting stuff at you. And that's been the best preparation to be a manager of my entire life.
I love that. I would never think to do that. That's really
it was great. No, it was good. It was really good for confidence, and also, you know, you're on stage and you're completely reliant on yourself. You're totally down to yourself, so you have to be able to improvise, and also effectively, you know, you can't ask anyone for help there. It's all about independence. So it's very good for resilience. And I did some after the course. I went on the amateur circuit for a while, and it can be quite dispiriting. And sometimes oh yeah, that's amazing, great, you get a big round of applause, and other times I had to go off stage even before the act is finished. I said, oh, listen guys, you're not enjoying it, I'm not enjoying it, so I just had to get off stage. So you have to, you know, to dust yourself down and pick yourself up.
You've got to be brave to do that, to end it before the
brave or foolish in the first place to do it. So I don't know what it was. I was younger.
I love that though, that's really interesting.
Wow, nice.
But James, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you today on Career Talk, and thank you very much for sharing your journey, your hidden talents, and your favourite breakfast.
Please don't judge.
Like I say, we're not here to judge. We're amongst friends. But thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.